If I'm lying, I'm dying. The Pro Flowers I talked about last week are still alive, and it's been like 3 weeks. I have no idea how they're still going. So why not show some love to our sponsor, Pro Flowers? Right now, Pro Flowers has a special offer just for you. Get $10 off your purchase of $29 or more to snag this deal. Just go to proflowers.com and enter the code Greggy at checkout. Are they beautiful? Yes. Do they smell great? Yes. Do they live forever? Apparently. Like 3 weeks. I'm not joking. Do yourself a favor and support our show by supporting Pro Flowers. There has to be a bee in your life that needs flowers, or a person. Get $10 off your purchase of $29 or more at Pro Flowers. Remember, because I had the whole bee joke last time. Last time around, I did the bee joke. I cut it out of all the other references except there. So just go to proflowers.com and enter the code Greggy at checkout to get this special deal. If the flowers never die and take over my house, know that I died doing what I love, getting asphyxiated by sentient flowers. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Over Greggy Show. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/seducer, Nick Scarpino.
2 Red Bulls in, maybe go for a third.
Now, talk to me about the Red Bulls. Again, you haven't drank Red Bulls in quite some time, and here you are.
No.
Why today? What happened? I've been gone for the afternoon.
We have a special guest.
Yeah.
Lorne Lanning's here.
Sure.
And every time he comes over, he's like, I'm like, would you like something to drink? We have only coffee, water, and maybe a soda. And he's like, how about sugar-free Red Bull? And I'm like, you, sir, I'm a champion.
So did you bring them, or did they just appear?
I requested them, and they
magically appear like that.
I
like this.
We got a whole ream of them in there
now that we got a whole bunch of people here working, they can send people out for anything we want.
It's really crazy.
You want a poodle? Andy Cortez will go get you a poodle.
You
got that poodle.
Yeah, exactly.
What's weird about that? We were commenting.
Don't
as
ever
we were all
fucking poke me again.
Oh my god. We were all sitting in the back room there now that we've moved back there. We're the old people.
Yeah.
And we heard them all talking, and I'm like, wow, they have a whole life of their own in there. It was like Andy and Joey and Kevin. They don't really need us anymore.
No.
So we have to destroy them. This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking before they get too powerful, we have to destroy them.
No, it's awesome that they have their own life over there. Don't shake your head, Kevin. I can see
amazing.
you doing that. Don't be doing that. Whoa, getting blue over there. Of course, joining us as always, the pure one, Tim Gettys.
That's the most.
You're 1 day away from your first beard trim.
I'm excited about this. Professional. I'm going to, after Nick has recommended this 1,000 times maybe, for me to go to the People's Barber.
Yeah.
To one of them douchebag barber places.
Yeah, super hipster barber places.
I'm going on.
Now, I hope you got the... I don't know the person you're getting the cut from.
She has an amazing name. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like Destiny.
Well, hopefully she gives you the attention that you deserve, because the thing I love most about these, I don't know if you've ever been to a professional barber before, but they give you the hot towel with the menthol, they rub the face. It's very pampering but in like a manly way, so you don't feel emasculated by it. Same way
Portmandian.
Yeah, Portmandian. Yeah, exactly. And rounding out the foursome today, the legendary game developer, but more importantly, a man who 2 years ago was on this very show, Lorne Lanning.
Yes.
It's great to be here again. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you.
My condolences.
I can't. I can't believe it's been 2 years since you were on this show.
I know.
Because we are, of course, fast friends, you and I. In the whole group. You fit in with everybody. You and Nick were out there just yucking it up like you guys having a great time. But I think about when you were on the show and you did the Burning Man topic, and we were in the spare bedroom and we did all that stuff.
Life-changing.
But then you've been such a supporter of us. You show up and you do the E3 shows with us. You come by when we have parties. You hang out. You're a bro.
Well, thank you.
Want you to know that.
Oh, right on.
Like you a lot, man.
Yeah, I'm feeling that.
Good. Okay, good.
And you guys give us exposure, so I'll pimp myself everywhere.
All right, because you would make this game called Oddworld, right?
Yeah,
that's the thing that's happening. There's a new one coming up, right?
Whew, that's where my life has been. Yeah, you could tell last time I was on the show, I had hair your color.
Yeah.
You look like you've lost weight, by the way.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
You look good.
I had 20 pounds. Because the last time, to deliver the last game, I had to go live in England. Try staying thin in England.
No,
really? I've heard the opposite. I've always heard the food in England's bad.
Well, yeah, but then it's fish and chips.
Yeah,
would you like fish and chips for lunch or blood pie?
I'll take the fish and chips.
I'm down with the blood pie.
Or blood
sausage.
Blood sausage. And pork pie. Pork pie.
Is it like a pot pie? Is it like a thing?
With pork in it.
Yeah, that's
like a gel.
Oh,
like I don't know, calories by the million per spoonful or something. I watched the talk that I did at Gamescom or something back when I was at there. I was like, oh my god, it was huge.
Yeah,
not in the right way.
Kevin's yelling at you.
Literally,
I was huge. Not in the right way.
Crank up the microphone.
He could not get closer to the mic right now.
All right, I'm with you.
Kevin, we understand you're doing your job.
We're
not mad at you. We love you very much. All right, take a breath, Kevin.
Thank you for the correction, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Okay. Is my voice cubed now? Good. Yeah. Okay.
Nick, you're also wearing your Beat Cop shirt for the first time since the Beat Cop Let's Play.
I am. I just wanted to remind myself that we did that. That was probably that's either high or low art. I'm not sure which one is which.
It was high art.
Was it high art? Yeah, I had a great time doing that. I wore it today to pump myself up for the other Let's Play we did this morning.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, to get ready for that.
Okay.
Felt like it was a little low energy. Listened to some AC/DC on the way over.
Yeah.
I'm on my third Red Bull now. Second Red Bull going on.
The problem is, I mean, what time? Lauren's been here like 45 minutes. How are you on your third Red Bull?
This is my second. I apologize. I'm gonna go for a third though.
He's already vibrating so quickly.
Remember when we used to work at IGN? They used to sell. They had the Red Bull machine.
That was the problem. I haven't had a Red Bull since
remember
IGN.
that.
Oh man, and I used to go around when I really needed one. This is back when I used to smoke, and there's nothing better than a diet sugar-free Red Bull and cigarette that go all together. But
It was $1.
I would go and I'd be like, I don't have a fucking dollar because who carries cash anymore? So I would have to beg people in the office for like quarters to make the dollar. And then I would realize I don't have any cigarettes left. So I have to go bum cigarettes. Basically, I was a big bum is what I'm trying to tell you.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're in the right town.
Pretty much, right? They take care of you here. Give you cell phones.
Greg had a little thing of quarters.
I did have a thing of quarters.
On your desk.
All my change I just shoved.
There was a
in
whole
the
bunch of times I'd call you and be like, "Hey, can I take one of your quarters?"
Yeah.
And you'd be like, "Yeah, sure." I
Yeah, just
guess.
do it. I hate change.
I had
hate
to,
paper money. I hate change.
Can you believe that some of these, parking meters are still change based?
It's ridiculous.
No one will give you
I just won't
change in
park there.
stores.
Fuck that.
Right?
Yeah.
You got,
No, they want that at
I
all.
don't trust you.
My wife has cash every once in a while, and I'm like, I don't. It's like it's befuddling to me. I'm like, how do you have like 320s? I don't understand how that works. Like she'll open up the wallet. That she has the beautiful like wallet that she has, and like she'll open up.
You know.
You know what we're talking
Well, I mean,
about.
like
here.
I don't even have a wallet, right? I don't carry cash on me. I just carry like 4 cards with me in my pocket loose. It's weird. It weirds everyone out.
Just in case the power goes out.
Well, I just don't need like I don't like people have these big chunky wallets, and I'm like I don't carry cash, so I don't need any space for it, right? And then I also don't need to carry 50 cards with me. I just have like my license, 2 credit cards, and like an insurance card.
It just seems so
That's
easy to
pretty much it.
lose them. They're
You
just
would think
loose
so,
in
but
your
isn't
pocket.
it- I mean, yeah, I guess, but then the other alternative to that is you're not sitting on a giant hunk that's like throwing your back out every time you sit anywhere. Get him your wallet right now.
Nick.
It's on my desk.
Let me see your wallet. You got your wallet with you?
Yeah. It's not big at all.
That's not
That's not bad. That's not
That's
bad.
easy. That's bad.
Faraday.
Oh, you got a metal case.
Oh, so yeah.
So because now
Oh,
they have
so they can't steal from you.
can't
So they
steal.
can't get
They
that.
can't
That's
swipe
so
it.
you're smart.
Now they're lifting. Now they put the security chip in so you can be hacked a lot easier from
Yeah.
someone else's mobile phone.
These sons of bitches.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, this is the Game Over Greggy show each and every week. 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table. Each bring a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com where you...
.com.
Well, you got to .com/kindafunny.
.com.
Just go to
So that's kind of funny.
I missed that. I wish more people still did that.
You and I do it all the time. You and I are the kings of bringing back stupid shit that everyone wants to forget. One of these days we'll sing the Cars Kids for Kids commercial too. And
That wasn't.
shit
That
never
wasn't.
left.
That was not.
there.
They redid it,
That
though,
wasn't a
because
Chicago
everyone-
thing when I was listening to the radio. Instead, Kids Line was. Remember Kids Line?
No.
Call Kids Line any time of the day. 1 quarter is what you pay. And here's where it gets really bad. Need help and nobody's home? Call Kids Line on your someone's breaking into your house? Call Kids Line and pay a quarter.
Wow.
No, call 911. Why would you say this Kids Line?
That's pretty terrible.
Suburbs of Chicago know what's up. You can go there. He tosses a buck. You get the bonus episodes. Then you can get each and every episode early for a few more bucks. But if you have no bucks to toss, no big deal. Go to youtube.com/kindafunny where we post the entire show topic by topic, day by day, until it goes up as one big MP3 in video for your listening pleasure. Lorne Lanning,
Wow.
what's your topic?
Well, you guys we were talking about Switch earlier.
Oh yeah.
We're big Switch
that
fans
there
here.
Nintendo Switch.
So
She just
what
got
other
done watching
topics do we
Direct.
have?
What? No, you make games. You don't like the Switch?
I don't have faith.
Okay.
I have no faith.
Now
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
telling me
Yeah.
that you don't have faith in Nintendo to come through with the games that you believe that they can to work out something with some third party. You're telling me that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
but
wait.
it's due to experience. So no, here's my forecast, and I know this is gonna be
paint the pictures for us.
crucified, but I see a similar level of success that they had previous generations.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
what previous generation are you talking here?
Yeah, Wii U, Wii.
So the
they'll
those are different.
outperform Wii
Those
U.
are different.
No,
Because the Wii U
they're
failure,
Two different. Well,
Wii
yeah,
success.
Yeah. That's a manner of speaking. How successful was it for third parties?
Okay, but
Don't act like you just dropped a truth bomb on us.
No, really. Who really, by the end of the life of the Wii, who else was making money on the Wii aside from Nintendo? How many titles sold for the Wii that weren't Nintendo first party?
Sure.
Okay. So what happened? So they started basically evaporating third-party support, right? Then we get to Wii U. What happened? Same.
No third parties, yeah.
Third party. So you would have thought. Let's just take a case in point.
It's only a matter of time before Kevin yells at me. I'm sorry, Kevin.
Sorry.
You look at his eyes; they're
So you would have thought. You would have thought that maybe if there's no games for sale on a network, if people have a hardware device, maybe they'd like to know that a game has become available.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that, you know, in a silly me.
Yeah.
I was thinking that in our last game, New and Tasty, we brought it to Nintendo.
Yeah.
Right. Now, as indie developers, so we're not even third party, right? We're like on the bus that showed up with all the tires are mismatched.
Yeah.
You know, like
we're just happy to be here. We made it.
Retreaded in Mexico before they brought it back over. And so we're on that bus because we're indie developers, right?
Yeah.
Which means you don't stand a chance in hell unless you have store support. Now, what that means is same as with everyone else. Google Store, Android Store, PlayStation Store, Xbox Store, Steam, right?
Yeah.
If you've got something really good for that hardware platform, they'll promote it. Not Nintendo. Unless you were day and date. So even though they don't have a title to release to their audience, even though you might spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring a title, they're not going to tweet that. When they have nothing to tweet. I mean nothing. When they were tweeting absolute absurdity. Because they had nothing to talk about because another first-party Nintendo title is probably not coming in the generation of hardware, whatever. I mean, based on what I saw at E3, right?
Sure.
I think there was 5 titles on the floor, yeah. So out of that, you would think that maybe just letting your audience know, because they get 30% of everything sold, right? Congratulations, you're allowing self-publishing. But the policy is, unless you release day and date with other SKUs, they will not give you any promotion. Now, how many megabytes of RAM? How many gigabytes of RAM are in the new device?
RAM or storage?
RAM.
I don't know. That's some techie bullshit. I don't care.
Yeah. And storage?
Yeah.
How much?
What is it?
32.
32.
Yeah. And RAM, I think, is 2, right?
Okay.
Yeah. How's the competitors?
A lot more.
Yeah. So what does that mean for conversion?
They're not portable.
That means irrelevant. So that means it's irrelevant on for this reason. For this reason, because what it means is you're not going to ship titles day and date. First of all, you're not going to make that underpowered of a title for the other systems anyway, because you'll probably get slaughtered.
Sure.
Right. And then if you do, now you're going to have to spend a lot more time, energy, and money squeezing it in to the limited amount of RAM that they decided to have in their cartridge. Now, why are they doing cartridge? Why are they doing cartridge?
Save on load times and
No, it's control manufacturing. Right. That's it. Control manufacturing. You don't have to worry about piracy and stuff like that. It's a different degree. So a premium on manufacturing costs. It's all about Nintendo first.
Sure, of course.
The other companies are winning. Like similarly, I have to say, I think Microsoft had a bit of this problem before Charla and before Phil
Spencer
took over, right? And then their policies changed, right? But they were so tight and Microsoft centric that they were losing the audience. Well, that's what's going on now, continually. So you would think, okay, the Switch, you're looking at specs, it's mobile, this is interesting. How well are other developers, first party, third party, indie, how well are they going to bring titles over? Not very well, because they're going to have to spend more time, energy, and effort to get it onto that console for an underpowered console that's going to have fewer units in the marketplace.
Do you think it speaks to it, though? Because this is you have an axe to grind. You got a vendetta pretty clearly.
Well,
there.
you know, look, it's not like we lost money, but we didn't. But had it been
you could have done way better,
we
right?
Done way better.
If they would have just
and
said,
you look
hey.
at it forward and you go, what's the point? Because we're not going to be day and date because they built another wonky ass system.
Here's what I agree that, don't get me wrong, the Switch is a wonky ass system. I agree, but I think what excites me about the Switch and why I love the Switch is the portable aspect, is being able to play. But it's also this: is the fact that since it's underpowered, since it's this, is it easier for indie developers who are making things like Shovel Knight, like Graceful Explosion Machine, like these games that are smaller, is it easy for them to then get their stuff over there and get them on this unit and have them exist where, because like for me, I loved the Vita. Loved the Vita, as you know.
Yeah.
And so when the Vita just got fucked over and Sony's like, we're not doing this anymore.
And you can't even tell, have they given it up yet or haven't they?
Oh,
it's still
they gave it up.
Yeah, but then it's kind of like it's a little bit
sure, but I'm saying there's no more AAA games coming from PlayStation.
Right.
They're not committed to it, right? And it was like, we got all these indies. That's good enough for me. I feel like the Switch is the same story, except that Nintendo can't back off of it. Nintendo can't say no more AAA games for Switch until they're ready to launch the next thing.
And what's the OS?
For the Nintendo thing?
Yeah.
Crap. It's crap is what it is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So why is it going to do stellar?
I don't think it's going to do stellar.
Right.
I think
So
it's going
how
to do
well
better
is it
than
gonna do-
I think it's going to do better than Wii U.
Yeah.
I think it's going to do.
I mean, are we talking just sales numbers? Like, what is the
Yeah.
metric of success here?
Yeah, well, it's
sales
just
numbers.
install base.
I think
Install
it's gonna,
base. Because
it's gonna
that's-
end up
that's-
doing way better than the Wii U at 13 million. We're gonna destroy that. It's not gonna hit the crazy numbers that the Wii did,
Yeah.
but I think it's definitely gonna eventually outpace the 3DS.
What about GameCube?
Yeah,
I think it's
it
going to be GameCube too.
I think it's positioned better to take more install base than each of the ventures you just mentioned, but the thinking has to change. So the biggest problem I see at Nintendo is the thinking. I mean, personally, I think he killed Iwata.
Really?
That he couldn't move the organization into a really successful arena, right? And what just happened with Mario on mobile? Not what they thought.
Yeah.
Right. So what's really going on? Where are they really
For the
steering
audience,
ship
for the non-gaming audience, what did happen on with Mario Mobile?
It didn't sell as well as they
didn't
thought.
It came out. It did really well, but it didn't like set the world on fire.
So
It didn't
part of it was
Pokemon. It didn't Pokemon Go.
for the non-game cast audience.
So Pokemon Go, you already had a property that was like enormously infectious at a card-based level, right?
Yeah.
So people are used to like gathering, sharing, trading, stuff like that. That's not Mario's history. Right, so Mario's more a console experience, right? So the first time Mario basically goes to a non-Nintendo centric piece of hardware, what happens? Doesn't meet expectations, right? This is like the wake up call to the new landscape, because I think they're testing. I don't know this for sure, but this is my guess. They're testing the waters on mobile because maybe they become a mobile-only company eventually, right? Which is kind of what the Switch is indicating, and then they're building off of an Android-ish type of environment, which is not the strongest for gaming.
Sure.
Right.
Well, I mean,
all the mobile.
It's back
developers
to
will
the
tell you that.
wonky stuff in the OS and stuff. The fact that there isn't an online eShop isn't up and running in the way it should be with Virtual Console. There isn't an online infrastructure yet. It's going to be there. Mario Kart.
Shit fucking crashes every 3 days.
Right.
So
yeah,
what you
there's
got
this app
to
and
do,
stuff.
like one of the things that helped Sony just blow past everyone else in the beginning of this console generation was how they just opened the kimono fully for indies to self-publish. Really set that trend outside of Steam, and then B, they gave you a platform to bring awareness about the title that you can't afford any advertising on. And when you're our scale, and in the indie scene, we're certainly not the biggest, but we're certainly not the smallest, right? And so, but basically, we're still in that space where we can't afford to do, first week advertising. We buy the store $250,000. We've preloaded that a year ahead of time, like the big publishers do on all the stores now, right? So you have to rely on quality will rise your product to the top. But if you have an organization that's so embedded in this antiquated thinking of the 20th century, we will control the hardware, we will control the cartridge manufacturing. If you don't release on our subpar hardware day and date with your other games that on your other platforms, that you're going to have to squeeze down to like a third of the capacity in running in memory and all, and that means rendering. I mean, it has a lot of implications, right?
Yeah, Nintendo first.
So unless you do all that, even if we have a total drought in the store and no products are available for our audience, we really don't give a shit about them because we're not seeing what we want as a policy, and so therefore we're just not going to really talk about you.
And this is the same. You're talking about what you ran into on Wii U.
Yeah, but
are you seeing the same thing?
It's not like we saw any
revolutionary
revolutionary change in management. It's not like we saw any. What we see is, to me, it's a tragedy because Nintendo brought this business back, right? Anyone who remembers what happened with Atari, the book Game Over was a great book on the history of the game business. Nintendo brought the business back, right? We're all playing today because Nintendo's
they didn't give up,
valuing
right?
this,
The entertainment system.
and then they
rather than video game
controlled
machine.
quality. Like they had certain controls that were really part of its longevity to stay in business and make the game business a valid space again, right? And now those controls, they really need to get 21st century about it, and they're not. They're still thinking in this antiquated way. And so what I see the motivation, as long as these policies don't change to be really 21st century policies or Web 3.0 policies, where you're looking at other companies to build businesses on the back of your business. That's the key, right? eBay figured it out pretty easily. Amazon figured it out. You can go have stores there. You can do this. The rest of the networks figured it out. And you can manage and you can get to know your customer better and you can use their platform as a business builder, but you have to have some leniencies to understand who your partners are, because then you're really like a partner. Like we're a nothing partner to Steam, but we're still a partner, right?
Sure.
Same with Sony. Like we don't show up on their sales enough to really make a difference. But you got to change that thinking if you're going to get support. So now you go, okay, can I make day and date? Am I going to delay the other titles on the other SKUs so I can squeeze in the Wii U that'll have the smallest install base out of the other 3 competitors, right? And now we got Scorpio. It's a pretty raging piece of hardware.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So can I accurately predict that we're either going to delay the release of the other platforms, which is, everyone's usually hungry for money. Like you got to get money back in the coffer, right? Or are we going to just deliver late, or do we think we can deliver on time with the other SKUs? Well, anyone who's done lots of conversion on big data stuff, you're trying to do AAA type quality, you're not going to hit that. So you just go, you know what? It's not a viable SKU. But so you're writing it off before you even had a chance to really test the market.
But do you think that, like, you in particular, with what you guys are doing with Oddworld,
yeah,
I feel like that's a game that isn't necessarily a Switch game, if that makes sense. I feel like when I'm thinking of my Switch games, and granted, this is because what they've showed me so far, or what I've played so far. Yeah, I'm thinking AAA Nintendo games, Zelda, Mario Kart, whatever, and then I'm thinking Mr. Shifty, and I'm thinking Snake Pass, and I'm thinking about games that are smaller, simpler. I'm not thinking that there's a third party. I'm not Insomniac is I don't think ever going to put out a Switch game unless they made a team that was like, let's make a very small game, like let's do what we did with Song of the Deep. Let's make something even simpler and smaller.
So then it's possible, right? And so now if you're doing that platform exclusively, but why would you write away the others?
Yeah.
Right?
Right. But but I mean, that's the thing with what's happening with the Nindies, right? Is like Puyo Puyo Tetris is already out on PS4 or coming out on PS4?
Yeah, but they're usually on different SKUs like this, and that's a good example, right? I don't know the inside story on any of these things.
Sure, you
I'm
don't.
talking about, right? So,
those of you listening, he just winked at Tim.
Thank you, Nick.
There you go.
But I don't know nothing. But you just touch on a really accurate point. So for us, let's just take our last title, which is, I assume that developers in a similar situation. We had to wrap up one, right? We have limited resources. We're self-funded. We're struggling already, really. I mean, that's just game development, right? Sure. No one wants to buy the thing they bought yesterday, so it's got to be new and different and pretty good, which means you can't accurately predict exactly how long it's going to take you.
Yeah.
And so you get a SKU out, and then you got to start generating some money. Now, if you're, I mean, I bump into the indie guys all the time. They're like, well, what should I do here? I'm like, you have to get on these other SKUs. You have to. You're just leaving money sitting on a table.
You got to get your game to
and that
people,
money
right?
might be that division next year that you're not laying off because you got over to Xbox and first you were only on PS4, right?
Yeah,
it's money. So I think if you were Switch only, right? So now you don't have the day and date promotional problem with a really strong game. You might do fine. You might do better than you were on the others because you won't get as eclipsed by the big AAAs and stuff like that. So there could be some advantages for some people, but overall it's going to add up to the same thing. Smaller portfolio on the library, period. At the end of the day, the catalog is going to be this when it could have been this.
I agree with you. I don't think you're wrong. And that's the thing is like I always go back to Drinkbox. They made Severed, they made Guacamelee. They kept supporting the Vita. And they did a GDC speech basically where they were like, I know people ask us all the time, why are you making games for Vita? And the reason being is that there is an audience here. They buy games. There is an attach rate that's going. And I feel like right now in the early days of Switch, that's what you're seeing is that there's people who have the Switch and are hungry for games to play.
Well, how big is it?
How
big is the audience?
Exactly.
What is it? 2 million units?
2 million.
Yeah, right. That's what they wanted to hit by.
So let's take 2 million units, right? Now, do you ever sell in 10% of the install base?
Supposedly, Switch has a crazy attach rate with the
that's because there's so few available. One of the highest IPs of all time, right? Nintendo first party. Well, Nintendo is it first party? It's basically first, but in-house will deliver IPs that the Nintendo audience is just frothing for, right? So they'll have the highest attach rate of any new console with their own specific IPs, Zelda and Mario. Right?
Sure.
Maybe Kong. And Donkey Kong.
Yeah,
so they'll have an unusually high attach rate.
Right.
But what's the chance of anyone else after the initial launch, right? Because the first
now
thing,
is the store fills up.
If there's only 3 titles available,
Yeah.
you're probably going to sell super high attachment rate, right? But as soon as 10 are available, how are you going to do?
Yeah.
As soon as 20 are available, how are you going to do? Which is really the metric, right? If you didn't make it day one, you're in the higher numbers of competitive stuff. And so
here's my argument.
Yeah.
Here's my counter argument. What I think is interesting, if I'm a small developer and I'm making Snake Pass, which they just did, right? But let's say I'm making Snake Pass months from now when there's more games out there, right? Snake Pass hasn't existed. If I go with Nintendo and I do the whole, all right, cool, day and date, whatever. What Snake Pass, Snake Pass published on everything, but I publish on Nintendo and I publish on PC. Those are the two platforms I'm able to put out at day and date. All right, cool.
Right.
I feel like it's a similar story where that can drum up in the Nintendo Switch audience, drum up support so that in 3 months or whenever the window's up, I can put it out on PlayStation 4 where there is this giant install base, Xbox One, bigger install base, and get them to go get it in the same way like Limbo did. Where Limbo, hey, I'm only on Xbox, this is great. And by the time I got to PlayStation 4, everybody snapped it up.
And I think it's a great comparison, and it's true. And how many cases will that happen for? So when you look at a platform, right, it's like, okay, so those laser discs will sell some more. But how many other people's titles? Right?
Yeah.
Right? You're still in that, like, it's going to be a smaller portfolio because some people, like, if we were in, like, just getting started, I might target Switch first. Because there's less, I'll say what you said in a different way, right? There's less competition, so I'll have more visibility as long as my game is good, right? If the game's not good, I'm going to just destroy the IP because I'll get higher visibility and it wasn't
that
there.
game sucks.
Right? Yeah, exactly. We've seen that happen, right? On the PlayStation initial launch, we saw some games just tank really fast because they got awareness. So you could, if you look at it as an individual company, small company in particular, seeking strategy in a way to get more visibility on your brand, well, everyone's going to be reporting on Switch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're going to have to show some games. What's the likelihood that you can get some of that screen time? Which is exactly how I would be thinking about it. And to your point, I think that's a smart move for some people. But where is that going to leave, for some groups, but where is that going to leave in 5 years from now? How much of a viable platform is it? Where is Nintendo that was really, the emperor of the industry? It wasn't many years ago, was in the marketplace. Nintendo, Hollywood Reporter was writing the most successful entertainment company at all time, right? Of all time. I mean, the comprehension of that was unbelievable. So you go Paramount, Universal, Warner, get out of the way. Disney, get out of the way.
Nintendo's here.
Nintendo. You're like, what? How is that possible? And in this short amount of time.
How quickly it all changes.
Yeah, so they have the cash to fix it. Yeah. They have to have the will. So I think, there's opportunities because of, cases. Press is going to cover it. If you get there early, you might get coverage you never might have got on the PlayStation 4 or the Pro or the Scorpio.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing, too, is just the fact of, like, where you're going to be in 5 years. It's the same. Now you look at PlayStation 4, and it's the same way, right? Of, like, we made fun of it all the time on PS I Love You. The 30 games that came to PSN this week. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how the fuck are you going to find the great games in there when there are so many garbagey games in there? There's this weird.
It's tricky, and
you
that's where
you can be too small like Nintendo or too large like Steam, where it's even worse.
Yeah, but Steam will still, if you have a great game, Steam will help you shape how to promote it. I don't know about get to the top, but they'll at least give you advice.
Sure.
They'll tell you windows you should avoid. They'll help work with you. I'm not saying Nintendo won't.
Sure.
But they will do that because and then if it's making waves and it really shines, they'll give you exposure. And it won't be like, well, you released on PlayStation first, so we're not going to promote. And Apple's not going to do this. If it makes the iPhone look good, they'll give you some coverage. That's their model. Gotcha. Not like, here's all our rules, so we win first. And if you don't abide by them perfectly, good luck with exposure.
But don't you feel like this console generation is more closely mirroring like the at least the cachet of the Wii than the Wii U? Because I feel like from an outsider's perspective, there wasn't a lot of excitement around the Wii U, but there seems to be a lot of excitement as far as just the consumer is concerned around the Switch. And doesn't that count for something? Like, in other words, how much of this matters to Nintendo as far as like, is this a strategy they have to shift, or are they happy with this as their level of success that they want?
How can it be, right? They're a public company, right? Right? Yeah. What do public companies need? Growth. That's it. Growth, right? So, as I heard one person within Nintendo say, complaining about the internal policies, they said,
Mario?
"We're not." Yes, Mario. He was smoking the crack pipe, man. He was saying all kinds of things. Should have been at that party, man. Yeah. No, but
can you turn on the fan?
But
sorry, I threw you off.
Yeah,
public company.
You're talking Nintendo.
So they're a public company, so they have to have growth,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
They have to have growth. They have to have profit. Everyone's watching them this way. They need to pull it off. Are they going to really pull it off at that next level, or are they settling? And you can't really settle in this business because someone's going to eat your lunch, right? Microsoft's a public company. Sony's a public company. They're all focusing on how to eat more of the other guy's lunch, right? You come in with an underpowered piece of hardware, doing it on a cartridge, having different promotional rules and constraints that are policies. None of those things are adding up to faster growth.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. For me, the whole thing is I'm fascinated to know behind closed doors what their expectations are for it.
Yeah,
because I do think that they have I love my Switch, right?
Yeah,
but I love it knowing its limitations. At no point, I made the joke all the time, like if Mass Effect would have come to Switch as well day and date, I would have bought it on Switch. But I know that I don't own my Switch saying, man, I can't wait to play the next Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft's not going to give them anything you need like that. Maybe we get a Ubi Arts game similar like Valiant Hearts or something.
And even if we got the Assassin's Creed, you don't want that. Like anybody that thinks they want that, like I'm sorry, you're wrong. Like why would you want to play the dumbed down version when there is more powerful things out there? It's like if you have the Switch, you need to know what you're going to get from that. And that is indie games, that is first party games. And now that eventually the 3DS will get phased out, that means you're also getting all of the smaller AAA Nintendo games that used to be the Fire Emblems and the top-down Zeldas, the 2D Marios. Like you're still going to get those.
So what I think is Nintendo is going to sell its first 3 to 4 million units fast, no matter what.
Okay.
Because as a game brand, my guess is Nintendo has more tattoos on skin than any other game brand as a console, right? I see more N's tattooed on ankles, and you've seen it, right?
Forces.
And I don't see as many PlayStations and Xbox logos. I see brands of games.
See, let's get a Smash Bros.
But the Nintendo fans are Nintendo logos, right? Like they're hardcore, they're diehard, and they're gonna sell this 3/4 million units. But 6 million units, how long is that going to take after that initial audience?
Just need a Mario Kart bundle. You need a Smash bundle. You just need to start bundling. All of a sudden, these people, they're going to buy it.
What's interesting about it is, again, I think you're right. And what Colin's point always was, right, is that Nintendo can't sell a Nintendo console on Nintendo alone. Look at the Wii U. That's what they did there, and it just didn't work out.
Right. That argument doesn't hold up because the Wii U didn't deliver the 3D Mario.
The Marios you wanted, the games you wanted.
It didn't give us the Metroid. Okay. So it's like,
but stick with me.
And you feel like the Zelda did, right?
The Zelda?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I think there's a trend that could start where if Mario Odyssey comes out at the end of this year, and it is that 3D Mario that people want.
So that's kind of how I think about it. It's like, I remember I bought the Sega Saturn.
I'm sorry.
Because I thought, you know what? For the price of Virtua Racing, just think of it like a coin-op stand-up, 3D good racing game. It was worth it. Yeah. The Saturn, I just thought of it like I'm buying an arcade machine for virtual racing,
right?
And it's worth it, right? But I didn't really buy it for any other games, just that game,
right?
And I thought of it like a coin-op purchase of a real hardware machine,
Yeah.
And I think for Zelda games and stuff like that, it's kind of like that. The Wii U was kind of like that. The Wii is kind of like that. The games that are great first party, boom. People, how many times did they play bowling? How many times did they play tennis? They're like over and over, but they were never motivated to buy another title.
And see, my thing about it is I think this is them turning a corner on that respect.
Well, I hope you're right.
Because I do think GameCube, I'm thinking GamePad, Wii U, like it was that thing where I think I was raised Sega. I was a Sega kid, so I don't have that nostalgia for Nintendo. And so when I looked at the Wii U, I was like, that thing is garbage. And I play games, I'm like, these are great, but I'm not gonna go out and buy one of these things. I'm not that motivated for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I felt like there were a lot of people like me, and then there were the Nintendo people who peeled off and were just like, this isn't great. And then there were the people who were Nintendo and bought it and loved the system, were fine with it. But I feel like Switch has brought all the Nintendo people back. But then me, I'm having such a great time being like, man, this is the first Nintendo console since N64 that I feel like a connection to, where I'm like, this is great. And yeah, when you put Mario 3 on it and Super Mario World, I'm gonna buy all those things again. And I'm excited to play Mario Kart on April 28th because that is the game I love, Kart. And I hated the Wii. I hated everything about the Wii U, so I didn't even play Kart on it that much. And so like I'm stoked to have that. But I bought in and got it with the expectation that I'm buying this and I'm going to play Zelda and then Kart and then Mario, and then I didn't even think there'd be the Nindies like there's been, where it's like, oh, Snake Pass, oh shit, Graceful Explosion Machine, oh shit, Mr. Shifty. Like I'm playing things on it that I'm super stoked about that I can't only get there for right now.
And they're promoting those games really well, so it's like they must be going through all the bullshit and doing all that stuff. But
as your early release title, they have different motivations, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's gonna work for some.
Yeah.
Right?
But my other thing is that I never think it's going to surpass PlayStation 4. It's never going to be that kind of machine
for me.
Think
back to SNES, right? When you were on SNES, you would have said GoldenEye. You would have said other titles.
Oh, N64?
Sorry.
I just don't want the comments detail.
Yeah, that was N64, right? Yeah. So N64, I was going back to Donkey Kong Country, sorry, or Firefox with the chip in there.
Star Fox,
Sky Fox.
Star Fox.
Star Fox.
It's the Red Bull. I'm telling you, sneak it up on you.
I'm telling you, man.
You need another one.
Yeah, let's load it up. See what happens. Yeah.
Then we'll get the truth, the real stuff that's happening.
So it'll have its core fans. It'll have its core playability with key titles.
Sure.
But let's go back to that. N64 was like you thought of many titles that you'll go back and you have great memories for you, and SNES as well.
Yeah.
That weren't first-party Nintendo titles.
Yeah, but that's not true. Like even with the N64, they didn't have the third-party support. Like, I feel like that was the first generation that it was like you can't only have this system. You needed to have at least two. And I think it was a kind of that was a kind of true thing then. But then by the time you hit the Wii, it was a definite like the Wii 60 was the joke. It's like you got to have the Wii and the 360.
Yeah.
Eventually PS3 came through, but this year or this generation now it is PS4 Switch. Like you cannot expect to get the AAA third-party games on this thing because that's not what it is capable
And
of.
this strikes a chord with me in the same way PlayStation VR does. In the way we've talked about PlayStation VR for a long time, and I think on our E3 show for year one of Kind of Funny, you were like, you thought that PSVR had the best chance of succeeding out of all of them because of the install base.
Yeah.
When we were leading up to PlayStation VR, kept driving home on all the podcasts the message of like, you need to understand you are buying genuine hardware and you're not going to get a AAA game every week and da-da-da-da-da. And people bought it, and then I waited for like the knee-jerk reaction of like, oh, this sucks, I wasted my money, blah, blah, blah. And it never came. And it had to, and I didn't hear anything. So I had to start asking our listeners like, what do you think? And they'd write in like, oh no, it's great, I love it, I just don't play it all that often, it's over there. And I feel like Switch is a similar thing where I think people bought it and they were like, all right, it's my Zelda machine, and as a joking fashion, but then we're also like, it's my Zelda machine. Maybe it's my Mr. Shifty machine. Maybe I'll just wait till Odyssey. They bought in knowing what they're buying into. And this is what goes back to the real question I have is, what did Nintendo think? Did Nintendo know what this was, especially at launch, or did they think it was going to be slam dunk, runaway success?
I totally think that their goal is to outpace their handhelds and to try to get back to the DS numbers, which are crazy.
They're crazy.
And I don't think that they'll ever hit DS numbers, but I do think they can surpass 3DS numbers. And when the price of the machine is higher than the 3DS, that means more. You know, when you start selling way more games and there is only one system, the attach rate is going to be higher.
So my question for you, and this is a definite like outsider's question, then, so is the idea that they're going to just do away with any other handholds and this is going to be the one Nintendo unit? I think that is the goal of success. But if they get to that point, then this will be a successful system. Interesting. But then what happens to
now
the other market? You just
it doesn't fit
my
pocket.
Market, right?
But that is I
got a big pocket.
You're not eliminating it. You're just, this is what that market is.
Interesting.
Right? Like I think the fact that they have announced in the Direct today that they're selling the dock, even though it's already been available on the back end of the store, like they are gearing this as a thing where it's like, yeah, you can have it in multiple rooms of your house, but also take it with you. And I think that the more that they double down on that, they need to keep supporting the 3DS right now because of the install base and because there's money to be made. So
they're also going to need to come out with a really, really good battery pack for that thing.
They announced battery pack today.
The other thing that happened as well is like, so
that was an hour ago.
You literally build a title, right? Just think of the developer community, right? Yeah. So you build a title. What's your chance of sales? Like maybe you get in early and maybe you ride some of that exposure, right? And we're all about, we got legacy on trying to do that. Right? Xbox launch, whatever, like get it, new publisher, let's get there. They need a success, and you can get gains by that. But if you're tailoring the software to a specific piece of hardware, right? And that software is then not going to shine on other systems. So now you go, okay, how many Steam customers are there?
I don't know, 1 million. They're all dorks too.
Yeah, you're like over 100 million.
Yeah,
right.
How many people to piss off, Greg? Stop calling them dorks.
How many?
54 now.
PS4. We're at about 70. Is that?
No,
I'm hearing numbers.
54, 56, somewhere in there.
Where's Microsoft?
They don't.
25.
Yeah, that's the whole thing of like
on it, right? So
doing the math.
So that's combined. Let's say 200 million units of install base that you could be selling to, right? Granted, some of those titles might sell well on Steam, but Steam is a different audience too, right? They're looking for
different experiences, different
things that push their PC power. Yeah. It's not going to be Switch, right?
Sure.
So now you're a developer and you're choosing how are we going to spend all our time and energy over the next year and a half building a title, or 2 years or more, right? How many units can we sell?
100%. No, I totally understand.
So what I'm saying is those are decisions that, regardless of what the consumer is doing, that's going to shape what the development community is doing, and that's going to shape what publishers are deciding. Yeah. Right.
Well, for me, that's what's been fascinating about the launch. Yeah. Is I thought for sure it would come out, sell how it's somewhere, and then have a public opinion around it that was like, man, negative, more negative, and it's been so positive. But I do wonder if at EA, if at Ubi, they are like, fuck, should we get a team of 10 people to make some little thing that ties into whatever to put it over there?
How often do we see those publishers targeting one platform?
Yeah, super rare.
Right, so instead they'd be looking at it like, is it worth the cost of a conversion?
But again, my question, I guess, or even point or whatever, would be the fact of I don't think that if they're like, oh, get 10 people to make a Valiant Hearts, but that can go everywhere, because that's the whole thing. If you're making something for the least common denominator, then it can be applied everywhere else.
It can, but now you're on these other systems where I mean, we're small. We put a few $1 million into a title, right? We try to make it look like 10 or more was put into it. Sure. Other people are putting in tens of millions. Those things look pretty great, right? Now you're watching it on hardware. So your device might play those games, but is that the reason why you bought that type of a high-powered device?
And this is what you're talking about with the different communities and how they look in all different stuff. Because like for me, I'm Mr. PlayStation, and they're like, here's PlayStation 4 Pro, and I'm like, I don't need it.
Yeah,
I don't have a 4K TV, and I don't care.
If you were a company that had financing, like let's say a VC funded your game, right?
Yeah, it's Kevin Coelho Industries.
There you go. Okay, so what's his last name?
Coelho.
C-O-E-L-O. More Peruvian.
Yeah, well, that works.
Also, I like he's leaning back playing his Switch.
Yeah, he looks like a kingpin over there.
He was eating
my
peanut
God.
butter cups all morning during the morning show. So now he's like, he's taking all that sugar energy.
We got it. Kevin, pull up a photo of you in your suit to show Mr. Lanning, because he looks like Pablo Escobar in a suit. He looks intimidating, like he runs an empire.
We got to get him some gold-plated 45s.
Yeah. You love that.
Did you ever see that gun collection? Wow.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Wow, man, priceless.
Yeah.
So I think that's what ultimately is going to be a big part of shaping its success. And if you're if you were a developer with an investor, the investor's going to be like, so you're targeting the smallest system with the smallest install base that's capping our possible success at, and you're not really targeting being competitive on the other 150 million.
It's that I hear you and I understand, but I think it's just that you are in such a unique position in the kind of games you make, where I do think that it speaks more to we got it. Look at this guy. Look at this
wow,
kingpin
man,
over here, right?
You do look like Pablo Escobar.
Oh, for a second I thought you were carrying a bag with someone's head in it.
Jesus.
Like, it doesn't kind of look like he's pointing to like, I cut your head off.
No, he doesn't. That doesn't look like that at all.
Why did I see that?
I went to Colombia a couple years ago. Like, the most amazing thing. Have you ever been to Colombia?
No.
Okay.
Closest I've been to that is
the shocking surprise, right? Most gorgeous women you will see walking per square mile anywhere on the planet.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I've seen Narcos.
Wow. I never saw Narcos.
Narcos, yeah.
I never saw Narcos, but I saw Colombia.
I don't.
Oh my God. That's where the Victoria's Secret models come from. Like,
interesting.
As a herd. Like, unbelievable. I just never, it's a hard.
I say Montreal.
Yeah, Montreal's pretty fabulous.
So the thing I'm going back to is the fact that I think it's speaking more to the fact of who a Drinkbox would be. A company that's making these smaller severed like games. And I think they can sit there and be like, we're not just targeting Switch, we're putting it everywhere. I understand for you, because you guys are releasing fucking renders of Abe and like you can see all the pores on his skin. Yeah. Like you're making a game that is not at all like what the Switch's bread and butter Switch is going to be.
Right.
I think that's the difference.
Well, I think it's so I think it's all those numbers, all those trends are going to shape where people are laying their money for business.
Yeah.
And that's going to shape a lot of what the audience has to pick from.
Sure.
And then it's kind of the other market is mobile, right?
Yeah.
If you're making small games, there's billions of mobile devices out there now.
Sure.
I mean, it's tough.
Same idea though, right? That the market is just saturated with games. Like, how do you get exposure?
Yeah.
Charles,
but when we bring Stranger's Wrath 10 years later over to Apple, they're like, my God, the iPhone looks great. We'll promote you.
Nice.
Day and date, a decade later. But it makes the device look good. They're happy about it.
All right.
But you mentioned Mass Effect.
Yeah.
All right.
Don't not get into this.
I never ever trash developers, right?
Yeah.
But it should be an exception.
Damn, Lorne Lanning. Shade.
Like I was looking, I was like, how do you get worse graphics than your last iteration? Like, how do you do it? Something's inherently broken there.
Right.
I mean, I miss Ray and Greg. That's really what's going on. What happened?
They're out making beer.
I think they sold to somebody. Who was it?
EA, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Electronic Arts did it, huh?
Something happened. But I was watching these videos, man. I mean, I didn't play, but it's like, why does everyone look like they got a load in their pants? What's going on here, man? What happened?
You were opening up. They're going to come for you. They're going to come for Oddworld next. Tim, what's your topic?
I know.
So taking a real kind of sharp turn here. This is a much more serious topic than I normally do.
Sure.
I want to talk about suicide.
Okay.
It's a crazy thing. This comes from somewhere.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Are you thinking about suicide?
No.
Just making sure.
Never.
If anybody is thinking about suicide, Kevin, I want to put up the suicide prevention hotlines, please.
Yep.
If you can put those up for me, make a thing here for the U.S. and
we have that link to the forum, right? The thread.
I put up. Yeah, that's right. I put up a thread about that. We'll put that in the description. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, it's just something I've been thinking about recently because I've seen, there's the Kind of Funny Facebook group.
Sure.
And every once in a while, somebody will say something that I read. I'm a little bit like, this person seems like they need someone to talk to them or, whatever. And I feel like in the last year, it's gotten a bit more prevalent. And I'm like, something about that really doesn't sit right with me because I'm like, what do I do? At what point is it acceptable to kind of step in and like kind of be the, hey, I'm here for you. And at what point do you kind of need to just let other people get involved? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, who's going to call the cops when there's a fire, right? And if you just expect that someone else is going to call, maybe no one does. But it's like, I'm rambling now, but this all comes from a dream that I had a couple days ago that is something, it was like a deja vu thing where like, it's an experience I've had, but there's been a couple times in my life where it's just come back in a dream. And what happened was, it was maybe 10 years ago, if my math's right. And my mom and dad just got in a huge fight, like one of the worst fights they ever got in. And then I walked outside and I forgot what I was doing. But my dad like stormed out and like he came over to me and he was like yelling. He was super upset. And he was kind of like looking to me to like be on his side.
Sure.
And I wasn't at all.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's right.
And I was just like, I don't even remember the context of the fight at all. But I was very much just
Pineapple on pizza.
like, you need to stop treating her that way. Like this isn't okay. No, I'm done. And I remember him just being like, just looking at me and just having this look where he was just like over it, totally over it. And just like, you know what? Like, fuck, I don't have you. I don't need this. My dad was going through a lot of rough shit. Like his whole life was rough, but like specifically around this time, didn't have much going for him and had a lot of problems with things. And it hit a point where I saw a look at him where it was like he really had nothing left. And he looked at me and he was like, I'm just going to go walk to BART. And he started walking towards the BART station. And as he was walking away, I was super pissed because I was like,
how old are you roughly?
20.
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess 7 years ago. And I remember him just walking away and I just watched him walk away. And I was so angry because of this fight and this whole situation in my house and like what it meant for my mom having to deal with all this and just everything, right? And then I went back and I laid down in my bed and I just remember having like a weird flashback to a couple weeks ago where my dad was telling me that he read this story about this guy that killed himself at BART. And all of a sudden I just felt like paralyzed with just like fear and guilt and just like responsibility for the whole situation. And it was weird because I didn't know what to do. And like he didn't have a cell phone. There was no way to contact him. But in my head, I started going worst case scenario of like my dad is about to go kill himself. Yeah. Like he's going to the train and he's going to jump in front of a fucking train. And I started trying to wrap my head around all of it. And I remember I ended up driving to BART and I couldn't find him. And I was like, all right, well, at least he's not here, And I didn't see him that night. He didn't come home. And he ended up coming home the next day, which obviously didn't sleep that night. It was a lot. But that experience has made me feel a way that I've never, ever felt again in my life because it's someone so close to me. And I legitimately thought he was going to do that. And I just remember what it did to me. And there's been certain times, I don't know what the trigger is, but there's been something since then where every once in a while I have this dream where it's just the situation happening. I'm just kind of reliving it again. And it happened like a week ago. And I was like, whoa, it was just so fucking weird that happened. And I don't know. I don't really know what exactly the topic is.
You talked to your dad?
My dad's dead now. Not from suicide.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Okay.
Did you talk to him about that ever?
After? Yeah, I did.
A little bit.
And he answered in a way that was like kind of scary, like in a way that wasn't saying that he wasn't going to do it.
Right.
You know, like I do kind of think that he at least had some intention at some point during that walk, and I think the walk cooled him down. It's a long walk.
Yeah, well,
you know,
also not exactly. Yeah,
yeah, but
Don't,
I remember,
don't live next to a BART station.
Yeah. I remember him walking home the next day though, and like I went and I talked to him, and it wasn't even like a oh, big hug, like I love you, I'm so happy you're okay thing. It was kind of like hey man, I'm really scared about this. Like this isn't okay. I don't even know how to deal with it or handle it, you know. And I remember me and him then kind of went to lunch and just like talked it all out. And like it was just weird because like he was very angry and he really felt like he just had nothing left at that point. And you know, life had a lot of things go wrong in it, and it led him to where he was at. And selfishly, the night before that, when I was just in bed thinking about it all, I just remember thinking like how could he feel that he has nothing to live for? Like he has me and my brother and my mom at the very least, you know? And like I was making it all about me. And there was something about that's what I keep thinking about. And years later, I'm still thinking about it, of just like how weirdly selfish, but also just real it is, that it's like all life is a bunch of relationships with people. And if you kind of don't value a relationship with somebody as a reason to keep going, like at what point do you give up? And should you ever give up? And I don't know, like that's the thing, is when I then see these posts on Facebook, it scares me. I get a weird fear because it reminds me of that night, not knowing what was going to happen and not knowing what I even could do.
Well, first off, I don't think you should ever give up. That's my thing. Is like, and now, granted, I've never had anything in my life that's been nearly what you're talking about, as far as like that level of emotional depth in that place. Life can get bad sometimes, but inevitably, my experience has always been the worse that it's gotten, the eventually you get through that, and there will be something on the other side that's better. But it's difficult because life, a lot of people like to think of life as this happy-go-lucky adventure that we're all on together, and isn't it, ooh, sunshine and rainbows. But in reality, it's usually a series of quasi-traumatic shit, one after the other, until you eventually find yourself in the situation where maybe you do have a family, but you haven't dealt with all of that stuff, all that baggage that's come along with it, or you hit your 20s or you hit your 30s, and your life is not necessarily how you thought it was going to be. And we're really shitty as a society, especially in the United States for some reason, at arming people with the tools they need to mentally deal with the stresses of everyday life. And I always talk about this as far as just living in this specific area where we are fucking packed in next to each other. And there is a huge disparity of people who are not doing so well and fucking millionaires in this city, right? So like, a person can go crazy comparing themselves to everyone around you, especially in San Francisco, where you're like, we were just talking earlier about people who are buying $15-20 million penthouses, and I'm like, I'm still wrapping my head around the rent that I got to pay every month, you know?
Yeah. And it's block to block, like around the corner. It's people.
Social media makes it worse.
And social media makes
no one likes my comments. Like these things have these subliminal effects.
Oh my god! Like, somebody put it well a long time, not a few years ago now. Put it to me in a way that really fucking framed it in an awesome sense of that. Everyone's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is their highlight reel. You don't see them struggle usually. You don't see the photos of them just sitting there on a Friday night, not with their friends. It's, I'm out doing this, I'm out doing that. We're traveling the world. We're filming this movie, whatever the fuck we're doing.
Oh, and by the way, but when you do see those, what's the reaction, right? When you do see someone on social media, it's like, I'm having a bad time. Like it's a very polarized reaction, right? It's like,
depends who you are and who your friends are.
It's true, but like I would have to imagine that more often than not, it's frowned upon to share that level of information with people, right? Like saying, "Oh, I'm having a bad time. I need support right now." We don't promote that.
We don't promote it, sure, but I think Facebook you see more of it.
I mean, I feel like
Facebook, yes,
but I feel like we're moving towards a place where
that's what I'm saying. But it's still very stigmatized to be able to share that level of vulnerability with society, right? Especially what you're talking about. What you're talking about as far as the highlight reel is, you want all of these things are geared toward telling everyone, look how great amazing things are amazing my life is, right? It's this very, very superficial, vain thing that we all choose to engage with because it helps our ego, right? It helps us get through whatever the fucking next challenge or hurdle is going to be in our lives. What we don't realize is, what's that?
Remembering the good times.
Exactly. What we don't realize is that the more important shit is being there for each other when the bad times are happening, right?
Sure.
That we say a true test of a good relationship or good, you know, and I look at this the same way with me and my wife, is not when things are going well, or the true test of a person's character is not when shit's going well, but when bad things happen, how strong can that relationship be, right?
Yeah.
And I always see this a lot of times with young people, and you see it a lot of times when you're in your 20s, when you think you have these amazing friends for life, and then real shit happens and it breaks apart because these were just self-serving friendships that were based on, I don't know, you were in this class together, or you used to do this drug together,
you were
or
in the
you
same
used to
headspace
drink
for this
together.
thing.
Right.
Yeah, and you took it as something different.
Right, but I think that people more often than not, they just don't, they either don't have the support group or they don't have the tools to really understand what that real relationship is that they're trying to build with people. And I didn't have those until I met someone that wanted to figure that out with me, which is my wife. You know, I've been together with her for 10 years, and I didn't realize how really undermanned I was, or like didn't have the tools to deal with that level of relationship until I found someone who was like, hey, not to point out both of our flaws here, but
you need to.
We have to talk about these things. We got to bring this. We got to put all this stuff on the table and figure it out. And it's a very dangerous thing because we don't have a reward system for that in society. We have a reward system for, hey, you got a great pic on Instagram, right? We don't really have a built-in reward system for, hey, I'm working on this thing that I find is a deficiency in itself. Maybe it's my body, maybe it's my brain. I don't know what's going on, but I'm working on that. I'm going to share that with you guys so that other people who might have that problem can rally behind it. But that's still so stigmatized. You know, it's unfortunate that even you saying the words like suicide triggers something in me thinking, oh, well, that's, and I don't mean this, but my first reaction is like, oh, that's something that I'll never have to deal with. Like, but maybe I don't know, maybe I'll be at that place one day. Hopefully I won't, and hopefully no one else that we know is, but it's, the more we talk about it, the better it gets, and the more you realize that you're right. Like everyone, myself included, has really bad days. Some people have really dark days, and it's unfortunate. And I'm very fortunate so that I've had a support structure that's gotten me to this point where I've never felt that way. But that's not to discount or discredit people that are in that area, because not everyone's equal. I don't have a point for this statement. I just wanted to ramble.
Well, I think and there's studies and research recently that shows that aging with happiness is relationship dependent.
Interesting.
Right. So what happens, I think, is we don't really get the tools to know how to deal with this stuff socially, right? We're in competitive environments most of the time, right? That's changing in schools today, where everyone's a winner, which that's another issue.
That's an issue, yeah.
But it's like, no.
Well, it's everything but everything in moderation, right? But like you can't take it that far to the extreme, otherwise you're not giving people the real tools they need to deal with society.
But so when you look at it, like, I think of people I know, I've known a number of people that have committed suicide, and I've been close to a number of people, and I've stopped a few people. And some of it was like, I'll just start getting these really, I'm not claiming anything special here, but I'll start getting these, like, based on that last conversation, I'll get these connected dots, and it's 2 a.m. and I'll call somebody.
You get a weird vibe, yeah.
And it's right on the verge, man. Like, they're ready to do it. And he'd be like, I can't believe you called. And I was like, well, I was just thinking about that thing, and I was thinking we kind of had some tension, but it's really okay, Like, I just had this feeling like somehow something was said, sunk deeper, whatever. And those, like, I'd say trust that gut. Right? Like, approach it gently. Like, hey, you're not thinking about killing yourself, are you?
Right.
Like, approach it gently.
Kick in the door,
but
and
trust that
Netflix.
gut. I mean, we live in a universe we understand very little, right? Your greatest neuroscientists on the planet will tell you how little we understand about the human brain. We're learning a lot quickly. We understand very little, right? There's all kinds of phenomena we can't explain. And we learn things every new. But yet, we want to think that someone has all the answers for humans, and it isn't there, right? Like, maybe in 100 years from now, we have a lot more answers, but we don't have them yet. So when you go, what's a couple of the common things? We're social creatures. We're like dogs. And dogs alone, they don't age well, right? And neither do people, right? My whole family's dead. Like, I watched this in my own family from relatively close zone. And so we have to learn how to deal with these discomforts in relationships so we can work them out to be better people. Really, that's it, right? Personal evolution comes from that. And if we're not given that tool, then what happens is we start isolating ourselves more. I know so many people over time that I grew up around, whatever, and they're like, I just don't want to, my own mother, the relationships never work. I'm just going to be alone.
Right.
And you're like, that's the worst decision you can make in your life, because then
it's an easy short-term gain for a long-term deficit.
It's not even a Band-Aid. It's an avoidance.
Yeah.
It's like not paying taxes. It's going to come back at you.
It's what builds into the saying, if you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Where it's like, you can, but it's really, really hard.
And working out with people is tough. Like, working your stuff out with people. I mean,
because working your stuff out with people means that in reality, you have to work shit out in yourself.
That's the key.
And that's the problem is a lot of people, and this is the thing I run into, I see it in my relationship sometimes with some people, members of my family and friends, where I'm like, you're saying things, you're venting to me, but what you're not realizing is all the things you have, all the problems you see in the world around you are actually coming from you. Yeah. Like you are not, and maybe you do subconsciously realize that, but take these two things, right? I can change what Greg's doing, or I can change how I'm reacting to what Greg's doing, right? It's actually probably easier for me, at least mentally, to be like, I'm going to tell Greg I don't like what he's doing. But in reality, it's really fucking hard to change yourself. Yeah. And it's really hard to change yourself because you have to be honest with yourself. Yeah. You can't really, and that's, like, it's easier for me to see Greg's deficits. Not that you have any. The hair is fantastic. I'm loving it today.
Like now that I've got it like gelled down a bit, I like it more. I don't know about this hair.
But I always say I wish I could make my friends' decisions for them, right? Yeah. If my friends would just let me make their decisions for them, I'm like, your lives would be awesome because I have that outside perspective. Yeah. It's so much fucking harder to have that perspective of yourself, right? And unless you have someone in your life that's being 100% honest with you, and honesty sucks because what honesty means is you got to take your ego and smash it down because that ego is that fucking shield we put up to deal with all these things in the world. You got to take that and you got to throw it out, or at least leave it outside when you go to have these conversations.
That shit's so hard, and it's especially crazy to stop and think. It's very hard,
especially for us. We're all public people, right? Our ego is this thing that we're building ourselves up on, and we have to sometimes let it go.
This is
sorry to interrupt you, Tim.
Slightly connected, but I was conscious of this stuff when I was building games and when I started with like Abe's Odyssey. And one of the things that I thought, having gone through some really rough periods in life at different times and knowing how easy it is to make dumb, really bad decisions for your whole life, right? And prison's full of these people, right? And so I was like, why do we have 3 fails? So it was set by sort of a Nintendo model, which really came out of a coin-op model, and I'm not dogging Nintendo. But why, after 3 fails, are you penalizing me back further? I'm obviously not that good, but you're penalizing me more heavily because I'm not that good. I was looking at that, and I was like, psychologically, that's a really negative ratio, right? And so what if we just said infinite lives? Just keep on. I mean, we were cognitively, consciously focused on this as a problem. Like, if I feel like I might have a chance to do it and I keep on doing it, I don't have a computer telling me increasingly like a teacher would, you suck at this, why don't you just try something else, right? Instead, if I'm having fun, I can keep on trying. 500th time I succeed. If I had the will to do that, now I'm a winner. Right?
Well, you overcame.
But I wasn't told along the way, you suck, why are you even playing this game? Which is the subtext of 3 tries, get back to the square one. Sure. Right? And those are like, we were thinking about those things. It's like, how do you make someone feel more like a winner when they might be, experiencing what a lot of us feel at different times, even no matter what spectrum you're on, like a loser. Right?
That's very fascinating because you look at how the world is built up, right? We're built to get those quick successes. We're not really geared, like you're right, a lot of things in our life don't gear us toward what real progress and success is in real life, right? And to me, and maybe your definition of this is different, but when I look at, for instance, what we're doing here, or I look at what we're doing in my relationship, right? It's hard to gauge progress while you're in the middle of it. Like, you don't really see real progress until you're maybe 2 years down the road, or in my case with my wife, 5 years, 10 years down the road, and I look back and go, holy crap, we have a great relationship. But we're not really ever told that, or at least I wasn't told that, like, that real progress comes with grinding a little by little every day until and it's not even about fail, succeed, fail, succeed. It's about try. Oh, that worked. Try. Oh, that worked. And you don't. And like and these things that are incredibly important in life, I really feel like they don't come to you in a week. They don't come to you in a day. You don't have that aha moment. You just all of a sudden you work at it, and after a year or two, you're like, oh, I guess I've achieved that. I guess we're there, but you don't really know because you're already on to sort of the next level. And it's not even a
thorn in your side anymore to be like, oh, okay, I'll just put that I'll just not comment on that right now, but I really have the right to, Yeah, but, I guess everyone else doesn't want me to comment. Like, that's an easy phase to go through too. Well, I'll just behave, but everyone's wrong. Yeah, right, and then you're just deepening in your own funk again with a better behavior.
Right. Well, that's the thing. It's a mindset change, right? Yeah. You got to change your mind. Yeah. You got to change where your head's at.
Well, I equate this, like, I talk about movies a lot, right? Yeah. And what are we taught in movies? All right, we're taught in movies that every single thing that we need every problem we have can be overcome in 2 to 2.5 hours. right?
Yeah.
And we're raised on that. I was raised on it. In the 80s, there wasn't anything that I couldn't, in 2.5 hours, watch someone go from complete fucking deficit to, I'm awesome. Now everything's happy-go-lucky. And we have these happy endings, right? And so do you think it's weird that when we can't solve those problems for ourselves in 2.5 hours, we feel like assholes that are losers? I mean, that's
always the roughest thing when you're talking about how
it's almost a test for gaming.
It's like, an interconnection thing of relationships of like when you get to that point in a relationship, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or your parents or whatever, where you've all said your piece, and then there's just that awkward thing of just like,
we didn't resolve this.
Well, this is not resolved, but this is what it is. This is reality. What do you do with this information?
Right. I mean, what's cool about that is when you look back on it, there's so many times where you know exactly what you believe, and you're like, I'm right. Like this is, I stand by this, and there's nothing that can change my mind. And even when your friends are around you telling you, hey, you're like, you should think about this differently. I think you're wrong. Here's why, whatever. You're like, no, what the fuck? Shut up. And then years later, you can look back and be like, they were totally right. I was so wrong.
Oh, yeah.
And it's those moments when you stop and reflect on what you've done and how you've changed that at any moment, as bad as things are, if you're like, fuck, this can't be fixed, it can. And in a couple of years, you can look back on it and be like, holy shit, I can't believe where I'm at now, because I remember feeling hopeless at this point.
Yep. And that's the big thing I always take away from when I talk to somebody when I write a letter about suicide, or when I talk to, on the rare occasion I've talked to somebody who was at the pinnacle or at the precipice of thinking about this. It's the fact that anybody I've ever heard from who survives the suicide attempt or whatever is always like, yeah, it's better. I shouldn't. That was not the decision I should have made at that point. You know what I mean? The people who you talk, and I'm sure, don't get me wrong, there's people who try to commit suicide again and succeed that time. So clearly, whatever. But I'm talking about years removed from the problem.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I made a joke somewhere on, I don't even know, but like that song of if you're going through hell, keep on going, right? Like you just gotta bite down and get through it, and that's fucking tough. And when it's fucking horrible, like, how do you do that? You have nowhere to look, and maybe there's no money, or you're out on the street, and da da da. Like, I understand like where desperation comes into, but then it is that weird thing of people who, I'm not gonna say, for me, right? I think thinking of suicide every so often is natural. Not I'm like to the point of like, I'm gonna use those pills and I'm gonna do this and I'm doing it tomorrow night. I don't mean that thing, but I mean
some level of saying I need to escape whatever's happening.
and running hypotheticals or whatever of like what would push me to that point and blah blah. And like for me, I think about like everything's fucked. You know what I mean? And like, so I have no family to go to. I have no friends to go to. The business has failed. I'm out on the streets. I'm all alone. Like that. Like it. I even then, if I'm homeless and I'm thinking of that, I'm trying to think of like what would push me to that point. So for me to think of that far down the line and not be able to do it, that's what's so heartbreaking of people who have good friends and good families and all these things, but one thing is so off that they're thinking this is the only way to do it when they have a job and maybe they don't love the job. You know what I mean? Like, it's not to the point of like, that's just how different we're all wired. Yeah. That I, like, for me to stop and think about like how far down this horrible timeline, alternative timeline where I would actually think about killing myself. What does that take? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there's a good Netflix comedy special by Neil Brennan, who was one of the guys that wrote the Chappelle Show. He talks a lot about that, right? And what he talks about is that he's been depressed for the vast majority of his life, and that a lot of people are like, how could you possibly be depressed? You're writing on the Chappelle Show. Right, you're writing on, this is back, of course, like 10 years ago, whenever the Chappelle Show was on.
Sure. Of
like, you're writing the #1 show on TV right now. Like, everyone loves this. This is amazing. You've hit this level of success that everyone has fantasized about. When I hit that success, then I'll be happy, of course, right? But he goes, no, I've been dealing with depression for so long that I don't even know what happy is.
Yeah.
And he goes, and the #1 thing I always see in my friends, even if they're not willing to admit it or they've flat out said it, is they're like, why don't you just be happy? And he's like, if I could, I would. Right?
Yeah.
Like, if that was like, don't you think I would if I could? But I can't, because there's something that either medical science or I don't have the tools to figure this out. No one has the tools to figure this out. So I just have to be in this world. And of course, he's contemplated suicide. Of course, he's been down those dark paths, right? And luckily, unfortunately, he's had people or circumstances have pulled him through that. You talk about if you're going through hell, keep on going through. My touchstone is always the Dark Knight, right? He's like, it's always darkest before the dawn, right? And I know I don't want to boil it. I hate boiling down complex issues like that to
cliches. But I mean, like, there's something to it, right?
There is something to it.
When you're
this is a personal case, right? Sure. Like, whatever. People grew up worse. You know, there's lots of issues, but at a certain phase, and it wasn't all that long ago. It was after people would have thought I was really successful, right? And I just, man, it was like facing every day. It was like, I just don't want to fucking do it.
Yeah.
And so I finally took a step, and I grew up I was born in '65, right? So it was like more macho era, East Coast.
Yeah, you didn't talk about your feelings.
No way.
Yeah,
no
would
way,
you don't need
man.
feelings. You're a man.
Depression was something for wimps to admit. Like,
Sure.
you would never add up to that. And I remember, had a great partner, right? And we're not married, but we might as well be. But I married my business partner, basically. And so it was like we had been working together for years before it became something else. And it was like, at that point, she was CEO, so there was no issues about giving me shit on my stuff. Right? And so I got that in spades. But and so did she. So, but it helped us each evolve. But what happened to me was I got into a zone where I realized I couldn't see the good in almost anything. And I would wake up every day with this feeling that as soon as I started thinking about the things that I was too much focused on, I would just feel these total knots just build up my stomach. I'd be like, can't take it. And seriously thinking about all the wrong things. And then I said, so finally I admit, I'll try a med, right? Like, I'll try it because I know what I'm seeing is not reality. I know, and I can sit down here and I can make a list and I can measure all this stuff and it's not that bad. What the hell is wrong with me, right? And so I went on a medication for a year. And I think it was Zoloft.
Okay.
And I didn't like how I felt.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
But this was the value. The value was tremendous, and it affected my life hugely. While I was on it, I was just like, wow, I don't wake up with that feeling. Now, as it was explained to me from the person who gave me the prescription and stuff, was like, this is what it's doing. It's shutting off these certain receptors in the brain so they can't overfire, and it's doing this over here. So you're not going to get, your dreams are going to change. I was like, my dreams are going to change. Yeah, your dreams are going to change. Like, tell me all this stuff. I was like, well, I'll give it a shot, and there's some other side effects that was part of why I didn't like it. But what I found was I was able to live a year for the first time in my life. The first time in my life, you live for a year without having an overreaction in my brain, right? Without like extrapolating on, we got a flat tire, but that means we're not going to get home and there's a snowstorm.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, no matter what, you got a flat tire. It doesn't mean you're not going to get home, but all of a sudden you're living in, we're not going to get home.
Right.
Worst case
It's
scenario.
worst case scenario.
Yeah,
Dominoes are falling. Here we go.
Dominoes are falling, and the stack is getting higher, and eventually you're overwhelmed. And there's a lot of me-isms in there but for whatever reason, for that year, I didn't have that experience. And I got to the end of the year, and I went, you know what? I think now I can identify, because I've had a year without that feeling that I've lived with from day one, like right out of the chute, right? It was always there, and then different events made it worse or not. But you're like, if you can measure all this list and feel this way, something's wrong. You got to get some help, basically. Yeah. And the help I needed, I mean, I live with someone who's got a psychology degree from USC, and that's maybe a little too much help at times. But
dial the hell back, honey.
But it's been priceless in all the great ways.
Sure.
As challenging as that. As you get challenged when you're with smart people that care about you, care about themselves, and aren't going to take your shit. You're going to be challenged. And but the ability, if you're feeling this way, like, part of it is brain science. We don't understand. The brain's a machine. You're like driving a car and you don't realize you don't have reverse. Like, you'll realize like something in you is kind of missing, or you've been programmed to reprocess information in certain ways where it's always a panic or it's always an anxiety, and anxiety is terrible, right? It leads people to all kinds of crazy decisions. But just taking that time and going on for a while and then coming off, when I came off, I could go, wow, here it comes, but I know it's not real. And then I was able to process it differently, right? I was able to completely process it differently and have a whole different outlook on life, quite frankly.
That's fascinating, because I have known so many people who are like, I know I'm struggling with this mental issue, but I don't want to do pills because I don't want it to change.
Yeah, and you just, you think, like, I came out of a more macho culture, where you're thinking, like, I got to deal with this. If I can't deal with this, what good am I in? Which is just worse. Yeah. As opposed to just facing up and going, maybe there's something that I actually need some help with.
Sure.
I'm not.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong asking for help.
Yeah. I mean, I see this a lot, and this is one of the reasons. Like, I've been seeing a cognitive behavioral therapist lately because I started having claustrophobic panic attacks. And I say claustrophobic panic attacks, but I think they're more anxiety-induced attacks based on certain situations. It's one of the reasons why I do jiu-jitsu right now, is because that is actually therapy for that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's a very real world way of reconditioning your brain, and a lot of it is prior conditioning that I didn't realize was happening over the span of the 36 odd years that I'd been alive. Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to trace it back to any root problems, but there's been, you know, you're affected more than you understand or more than you maybe consciously realize by your environment, right? And your environment is, you know, a lot of physical things, but a lot of people that are around you, and they're affecting you in a way. Your parents are two very big reasons why you are who you are. And if you grow up with a parent that is overly risk averse, that's always telling you if you get that flat tire, it will lead to the end of the world. Right. Once you are constantly put in those high stress situations, it's not beyond the realm of like understanding that your brain's gonna fucking auto fire like that all the time and lead you to that. What in my case happened to be panic attacks where I literally stopped. Yeah, started like the walls would close and I'd start losing my vision and my heart would beat so fast that I thought I'd have to pass out. There are more times than I care to admit, even in jiu-jitsu to this day, where I still have to go outside and like take a breath.
Yeah.
But it's getting better. And I will say, to your point, like the most important step is actually, believe it or not, the easiest step in dealing with any of these things. It's that whatever the simplest possible thing you think you could do right now is, do it. It's that quick little first step, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's Googling the number for someone who can help you. You don't have to call them. You don't have to think through that process. Just whatever, boil it down to whatever that very simple thing is you can do, and do it today. And then just allow yourself to take that process and don't try to deal with these hulking, like this is the number one problem I see with people who are trying to deal with anxiety disorders, or even like, you know, and I've dealt with weight loss issues, things like that in the past, is that you always assume you have to do everything and everything has to be done by tomorrow. You have to solve this problem right now, because if not, you're not a man, or you're weak or whatever. That's not how real progress happens. It's not. It happens little by little tiny steps that lead you forward, and that's how it goes. If you're the harder the fight, the longer it's going to take. So just understand that and realize that you owe it to yourself to take that first step. Call that doctor, talk to that friend, whoever you can trust, have a conversation with someone. Even honestly, just Googling things every once in a while, Googling a doctor's number, seeing other people on Reddit or forums that have dealt with this can be very therapeutic. So to take those steps.
And there's value in it, just to add. I don't know if I'm screwing up your time.
Son of a bitch. We invited you here.
He's making me feel this small, man. Where's my...
Have another Red Bull. Let's go.
Go, Lorne.
There's also the huge value in failure, right?
That's true.
People say this, and I used to watch business people say this, and I'd be like, "This is just such bullshit."
Fail fast.
Man, look at this guy.
We gotta fail fast.
I'm totally about failing fast.
Sure.
Fail fast, fail cheap now, right? We canceled 2 projects in the last year. We never announced them, right? It was like, I feel great about it. And I was like, we're winning. And they were like, we just canceled. I was like, I know, but look how little we spent to figure out that we should. Not 3 years in, right? This stuff, it was never announced. But so when you don't fail, here's what happens. And this is what I think happens. And we see this with different personalities, right? We're all fans of Steve Jobs, most of us, in the tech, right? But Steve Jobs was a real asshole. And you can ask his family, and they'll tell you all about it, right? But and part of the reason is all those successes. Now, he had failures that shaped it, and then when he came back, he was better, right? Like, that makes you process something. I look at certain figures that were heroes of mine, like total heroes of mine. George Lucas, right? Went through really hard times, almost died during Empire Strikes Back, you know, the fights with American Graffiti, like, you know, reading the biography, you're like, wow, you know, surviving the car accidents, all this stuff. But all that success, talked to his ex-wife. And not that I have, but I've heard cases, right?
Yeah.
And so all those successes, you start believing that all my characteristics are attributes to my success. It's because of this, like James Cameron, you know, people will work with James Cameron in LA, but no one really wants to.
No, they don't want to.
Right? Because he's just like, fucking, you know, put you through hell, right? So not other people, Steven Spielberg, they'll work with him in a second. Gets an equally amazing job on the screen, but he's not berating everyone and driving them into the ground and making his ego more important than everyone else on the set. So the failure, I think, forces you to sort of study your own character in the humiliating ways, right? And they're embarrassing at times. What I found was that if I felt I had to represent things that weren't entirely true, personally, whether you're dealing with a large organization, you're employing lots of people, and you have an HR mandate, you got California labor law, you can't be honest with people. You start finding yourself in these higher anxiety zones. You're launching a new console. You got to, you can't say this, you got to say that. You feel like your software might be more shaky, but if you don't do this deal, you're going to go out of business, and all these people you got to tell they're not going to have it. So you got to, tenacity of pulling it off. But when you're in a position where you can't really be honest, which is probably, most politicians, most business leaders of public companies, all these types of things, you wind up with these higher anxiety ratios because exposure, I think, humility to exposure and what that will do to your ego is like devastating, right? No one wants to be identified as full shit. No one wants to be identified as a con person, as a liar, as any of these things. And those things weigh really heavy on you, right? So Larry Ellison, another guy, it seems like he'll never be happy because Bill Gates is still richer, even though he's number 2 in the world. Like, what would some good, healthy failures have done to shape that attitude into someone who's more empathetic, more compassionate, more grateful for what they have,
Yeah.
And
but then would that person still be number 2?
I really don't know.
That's always a problem.
I mean, when you're into how do you get to be number 1? No one's winning the Olympics because they just liked the sport.
Right.
Right. Like
it's using those past failures to drive you somehow.
I feel like this is starting to move into the topic of your topic.
Yeah, this is actually. So we'll segue over to that. Good segue, Greg.
Thanks. Well, when you call it out, then it's just awkward. Now the segue's off the rails.
Hair's looking on point, Greg.
Right,
Hair's looking on point. Yeah, this is something that I've been wanting to bring up for a while, and it's actually awesome we have you here. There's the old adage that competition breeds excellence, right? And I think that you can make a strong case for that. I've never been a competitive person, right? I've always believed that collaboration breeds excellence, and that competition is something that gets in the way of collaboration and creativity. And maybe I'm wrong, but I wanted to hear your guys' opinions on this because I've never been fiercely competitive. I've always gravitated toward team efforts like marching band and theater, where in high school, when you do theater, it's not like we're gonna do a better production of fucking Little Shop of Horrors than our rival high school. We didn't do that, right?
But you do compete for the part.
You do compete for the part. But, you audition for the part, which is a level of competition, but it's a necessary evil.
I know. I'm saying. Sure. I mean, for me being in high school and going out for plays, I remember that freshman year not getting the part of whoever it was into Jillian on her 37th birthday, but Ben Gray did. And
fucking Ben Gray.
No, that was the thing is I didn't harbor resentment for it,
sure.
right? Like, okay, that sucks that I didn't get it, but you're great at it, so whatever. And it was like you're saying, more of a collaborative effort of me. I think I was understudies or whatever. So you're still making this play together. You're still doing this. But I didn't get hung up on the competition aspect.
The difference between yes, you're right. There is a competition. I hated that part though.
Oh yeah,
I didn't like the part. I didn't like that needing to feel like there was someone else that was trying to take me down.
Yeah.
To drive me to be better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and that's where I still struggle with this today, which is I don't like using competition as an excuse to be that guy that has to be number 1, right?
Yeah.
And that's what drives me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not driven by that. I'm driven by Tim and I had a great conversation earlier today where we were talking about rap videos that we want to do. And it was hilarious. And I'm like, dude, this is what gets me up in the morning, right?
Sure.
It's not about us making something better than Lil Dicky. It's not, because A, we can't, and B, I love his art and I'm just inspired by that and I want to go do my art. So yeah, I mean, I hate it. That's why I never really wanted to pursue acting as a career, because I hated the concept of being like, I have to get up today and work out because I have to be better than the other 50 me's that are going to go to this audition.
Right.
I was like, I don't.
Well, no, I'm with you. I mean, that's how I've always said that. I always thought I have a testosterone deficiency, right? Because that's the whole part of sports that would turn me off, right? In gym class when you're running around and they're making you play stuff, it was fun until those couple fucking assholes were super into it, and then I miss a frisbee or whatever, and they fucking flip out, and it's like, well, now I don't care at all.
You missed a frisbee?
Yeah, I know, right? That ultimate game, you know what I mean?
But that's fun. But
it's fun until some motherfucker takes it way too
There's
serious.
always some asshole at the softball game that's like, I should have been a pro.
Yeah, exactly.
So and then we live in capitalism, right?
Yep.
It's all about competition.
All about
right?
competition.
How's the planet doing because of it?
Not great.
Not great.
No.
Right. So
I mean, the jury's still out yet. I mean, we don't know. You know what I mean? There's no
we'll
proof
see.
that this is man-made.
I mean, there's
right.
there's a case to be made that competition breeds a lot of great things as well, right?
It's interesting. So let's take crowdsourcing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if we crowdsource a problem, mathematical, astronomical, physics, encryption, does it get solved faster by the crowd, or does it get solved faster by the little brilliant group that we gave it to specifically, or 5 different groups that are competing with each other? Almost always crowd solves the problem faster, right? That's cooperation, right? Because they're not like saying, "Oh, it's us within the team, and then within this, we're going to have certain sort of defenses of knowledge, and we're going to keep this in here because we got a real special sauce. You know, we don't want to share that with anyone." And then you got the crowdsourcers, the sourcees, right? That are actually doing the work, and so you go 4chan, right? Like the last thing you would ever want on your ass is tens of thousands of autistic hackers looking into your social history.
Oh, yeah, no.
Right? Like, they are going to find everything, right?
Luckily, I think
selling it to them.
Luckily, I usually I'll willingly put most of that stuff out on the podcast.
Because it's not going to be one. It's not going to be one guy saying, "Hey, read my book."
It's terrifying.
It's all of them going.
And you can't
what data
it.
did you find? I found this. I found it. All of a sudden, these dots. If you see the nodes of what's connecting, it's frightening, right? Like what the crowd can solve. And so my partner is she's got her psychology degree, right? Psychology and communication. She's like, competition is the worst thing.
Is it?
Now she's very competitive. Right?
She's like, "Oh, thank you. I know more about competition."
She'll be like, "How could you put that image on the screen? It didn't look better than everyone else's." You know, and you're like, "Gee, you know, so competition's terrible, huh?" But you know, if she could be on the show, she'd be giving you a whole rant on why and how it discourages a majority, you know, while it empowers a minority, and all these ratios around it. If you're trying to say, "How do we get to Mars fastest?" Right? And they say, "We have $1 billion grant to the people who come up with the best proposal, with the most likelihood, whatever," right? We're going to get to Mars a lot faster than just Elon Musk saying, "I'll get us there," right? And I'm all for Elon Musk. I think he's one of the only really admirable, you know, sort of titans in that class. But so you have, if you're highly competing, right? This is one of the things I really didn't like about it, particularly as an employer. You get into tight deadlines, big budgets, lots of risk money, lots of people's, even people like you're being supported by a publisher, it's a big moment. Those people are putting their jobs on the line. Like, they're standing up for you, defending you inside a big company, you know, new launch, whatever it may be. Lots of pressures around that to be the best, right? To have to kill the competition and this, that, or and hardly anyone comes out of that really thriving, right? It seems like it's focusing more on a different sort of anxiety, on a different fear, on a different need. But what I didn't like about that was it made me more judgmental of people I was working with, quite frankly. And I'd be like, you know,
because you're constantly comparing yourself to them,
I'd go home. I'd just go home and I'd be like, "This guy, man, he's got to go," you know, like, and I want to kill him, right? And I'm feeling this like rage or hatred against an individual for some reason. And then I go home and I'm actually, whatever, you know, might take a little hit, unwind a bit, California meds, and then I'm like, wow. But if I went to school with that guy, I would have still liked him. I would have still went to the barbecue. I like him as a person. I like it, but the competitive landscape made these really ill feelings between individuals. And I was noticing this a lot because I didn't like the way I was feeling about certain people, and I particularly didn't like that they didn't deserve it. And that's, I think competition is ripe for that. And then on the other spectrum, I mean, personally, I'm just a terrible loser. Like, I go through Vegas and shit. I don't put a dime in anything, man. I mean, it's like,
me too.
Doing what we do, I risk everything every time. Like, I'm into that kind of risk where it's skill-based. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But I feel better about being indie about it right on this topic of competitive, because we'll go to E3, right? The other indies, it's like we're all climbing up.
You're all together.
Out of the swamp together, right? We'll promote some of you in our game. We took slack for this because people say, "Oh, you had ads in the game." No, well, kind of. We just put up some other indie groups that we knew needed exposure too. So we were like, "We'll put you in our game. You put your in our." No money. No, just trying to help each other. Well, you would never do that at a AAA level.
That's what's so interesting about
a AAA publisher level, because you couldn't.
Us going from IGN to this, and the fact that YouTube is all about collaboration. You know, as soon as you get into it, they start telling you about that. But the fact that IGN, it was that, like, when I started at IGN, like, we wanted to be #1. Like, we were behind GameSpot at the time. And then when we all worked our asses off and did it, you were #1. And now we're going to maintain being #1. And we're going to hit every embargo, and we're going to do all this stuff. And it was fucking crushing. There was so much pressure. But it brought out it was never even the pressure of wanting to be the #1 site or be the first site or to do all this that really did it. It was the collaboration with everybody else. You don't want to let anybody else down. You knew how hard everybody else was working. But then that came out all wrong, Where it was back in the day that you would go to events and GameSpot wouldn't talk to us. You know what I mean? And we wouldn't talk to these people, and I wouldn't talk to Scott from PTOM or whatever. Right. And it was super awkward. And then as YouTube came up and the people started to blend, that's when it got to the point of like, you know, there's like for me in timeline wise, I have a kind of funny crossover to IGN, right? You want to talk about collaboration versus competition. Like right now, Colin goes off to do his own thing and kills it on Patreon. And it's like, fuck yes, awesome, great job, go do that. Danny O'Dwyer, when he came out, yes, awesome, go do that. We're behind them, we will support them, we will do that. And it's because we understand how this all works and that them bringing people to Patreon benefits us and vice versa.
And it's also even with Patreon, you're self-financed.
Exactly.
Right? So you don't have to be better. You're not representing a company that has to have next quarter's growth, looking on target, and going to crush the competition for 5-year investors. They're going to get their, you know, all that, right?
Right.
Instead, you're what I would call, you're in a sustainable model, not a capitalistic model.
Exactly.
You're existing in capitalism, but this is where, really, talk about evolution, capitalism needs to evolve, right?
Yeah.
It is seriously fucking stuck in a dinosaur age.
And
right?
that's the thing, is that this was the evolution of my own mindset, where Colin being the most recent example, going off and doing his thing. Great, awesome, we're gonna support you. Go. I hope you kill it. Oh, you're killing it. Man, fantastic. Right. Jump back to when we started and we were still at IGN and I still had that IGN mindset. Comedy Button launched the Friday before us. And I would refresh Comedy Button every fucking day, their Patreon, after we launched ours, because not because I fucking hate Brian or Scott or anybody. I love those guys. They've been my friends for years. But it was, are we winning or are they winning? Who's making the most money
some
right
weird,
now? Blah, 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 blah.
Like you make a weird competition out of it where there doesn't need to be a competition.
Exactly.
Right?
But it was because that was where I was coming from. My foot was firmly planted in IGN, whereas like now it is a thing of like, I understand how this works. I love the fact that we are not the biggest YouTube group. I love the fact that we are not the most successful fucking people of all time. It's great because now it is, we're a garbage truck on fire and this is the product, and if you don't like it, no big deal. And we're
you can be you.
Yeah.
Right? This goes to 100%. Insecurities as well,
not only
right?
That, but
this
you
goes
can,
to previous topics.
You can also, you don't have to be necessarily driven by bottom line, and that's what you're kind of talking about here, right? Is like the thing that I think that when I boil it down to business, the mentality that I'd rather have is I want to focus on the process, not necessarily on the outcome that's going to get me the dollar. Because I find myself all too often, I'm the same way, where I default to, are we going to make the most money out of that, off that thing? Like, are we going to make money, right? And then I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, why do we don't ever need to really focus on that here, right? But in the rest of my life, I'm always like, I'm caught up in that capitalistic tendency, when in reality, I know it's counterintuitive and counterproductive to what I want to be achieving, which is cool art. Right? And most people that I look at, the guys that I really admire, are the ones, not the Steve Jobs, the Wozniaks, the guys that are like, I just want to develop this team because it's fucking cool. And I've been rewarded for it. Cool, I guess.
Yeah.
But I want to keep doing this thing. I want to be more like that guy. But I'm torn between these two worlds of saying, like, maybe I should be more masculine and like want to compete against everyone. But then the real me wants to just sit in the room with Tim and talk about stupid ideas for dumb music videos and find dope beats and like maybe do those later.
I mean, it's something we've talked about so many times on the show, but I do feel like personally there's a sense of, I feel like I need to earn the right to do that stuff.
Sure.
And it's like you need to be competitive in the market to be able to make enough money to fund just what you're doing, but also the things you want to do, and to kind of keep going forward from there. To answer the question about collaboration versus competition, I think you need both to survive and to thrive. And I feel like you see the most successful people are the ones that are highly competitive and collaborative at the same time, and kind of combining those together. And I feel like the competition comes to yourself, where it's like you are trying to better yourself. You're trying to always have bigger goals. You always want to go bigger. And it's like, I'm going to go smaller, but there's a bigger goal there.
The competition you're doing is right now, you're trying to compete Kind of Funny Live 3 against Kind of Funny Live 2 against Kind of Funny Live 1, right?
Exactly.
You want there to be a clear trajectory of
what we're doing, and that's hard, and it beats you up, to like try to, when you fucking killed it, and you're like, oh, now I need to kill it even more, and it hypes you up, and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do it, and then once you have to do it, you're like, oh shit.
It's like, how often does Hollywood pull it off?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Is
how often is the sequel better than the original?
Yeah, very seldom.
Right? But they're always hoping
that
that
Marvel's, in which case it's a mixed bag. We'll see. But yeah, you're very true. I think Colin talked about this when he went on Rogan's podcast, and Rogan has a very good perspective on this, right? Where he's talking he's like a lot of people that are hyper competitive in a marketplace are ones that are working off of what they view. I think his term that he used was a scarcity model, which is they're just assuming there's only $10 left in the world, and we have to get our piece of the pie. When in reality, especially for what we do, where you look at what we do and it's heavily crowdsourced. outsourced, right? We derive the vast majority of our revenue on an annual basis from people's contributions to our subscription platform, which is patreon.com/kindafunny. Just in case anyone was wondering. But in reality, that's like pitting us against people for the comedy button or Dwyer or Colin's channel. You could look at that one of two ways. You could say, oh shit, like they're doing better than we are and we have to go after them. Or you could look at it and say, they have their own audience, we have our own audience. What are we doing to foster our own audience and not necessarily worry about them, which is that's the more, I think, positive collaborative effort. Right. Yeah. But it's so hard for me to deal with that because one says, I'm scared, which is the most basic human emotion that we've ever had. And the other one says, fuck the fear. We're fine. There's plenty of stuff to go around. There's plenty of resources to go around. We're all going to be okay.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's funny for me because one of my favorite things in life is rap music. And I grew up listening to rap music. And there is a core to rap music that's, fuck you, I rhyme better. Right. And I feel like with rap, it's always a competition, even between friends. And I like that. So that's why I look at Comedy Button as competition in a good way. You know, in a way that's going to push me, and I hope that they're looking at us and pushing them. Like, it brings me back to 8th grade. Like, I remember I was in 7th grade, and I had my classes with all my friends. And then when 8th grade came, all my friends were in one class. They put me in another one for some reason. And my mom,
you're like, I have to destroy them.
My mom came in and like talked to the principal and was like, hey, like, we really got to put Tim in this class. Like, he thrives off of the competition of getting a better grade than his friends in this class. They have this group that just feels some sense of community of, yo, man, I got a better grade than you. Oh, I got this, fuck. You know, like that type of shit.
Dork group, you know what I'm saying?
Nerds.
It's also
PC
like,
nerds.
whether it's Smash Bros or grades or whatever. I know, but I'm just saying.
Don't get
it's
so
like,
competitive.
Grow up with that shit. I wasn't saying anything.
It's true. Yeah. No. So I was going to say so one of the reasons we're able to feel this way today, let's say us as an indie developer, you guys as self and crowd-funded, right? Entities, you don't have investors beyond your crowd, right? So you're able to basically be more of you because obviously that's what someone wants to pay for.
That's the product, right? Yeah.
And now, but you're not pinched by, this is what I look at as the democratization of the exposure landscape or the delivery platforms, right? As long as there was retail, I got to go convince salespeople, buyers at Kmart, Walmart, GameStop,
put my game on the shelf,
why my game has to be there and that other person's doesn't, right? And then there's cost of goods associated. Now there's higher risk. There's more money, more risk, more pressure. That breeds the wrong vibe between us. That makes us want to get more isolated. If it was airtime, if your show was on G4, and you had the 8 p.m. slot. And someone else gets that slot.
It'd be highly competitive.
Yeah. Right. Different kind of competition.
Really different. But you're on YouTube. And it's like the better you can do, the better you can survive, the better you can thrive because you are G4. You're your own G4 now, right? We're in a space that before we used to have to argue for shelf space. We have to only so many slots a publisher is going to finance this and that. But when we finally, and it was a very humbling experience, right? Like going like, shit, we're not going to have commercials running all over the airwaves. Our buddies in LA film companies aren't going to see our products there. They're not going to know we exist, you know?
Right.
But the people who like our product will, and we can figure out ways to get to them, right? So it's kind of humbling of like, wow, we're going to go from, no more big campaigns, no more MTV, no more ESPN, no more this and that, cartoon sushi, whatever it was, giving us exposure. But now we just go, well, we're on a level playing field. We're all equally accessible. We need exposure opportunities. We need people. If we build good product, will you highlight us, right? That's kind of like you have YouTubers that are highlighting you because they're fielding it in different ways, right? So it brings us back to we don't have this narrow funnel of only these guys can be winners, right? Cable networks. Only so many slots a day, the rest are losers. If you didn't get a slot, you got that. If you got bumped out of primetime slot, if you got bumped out of
you didn't get another order,
height on retail shelf,
your pilot didn't get picked up,
dropped 2 shelves lower, now you're a loser, right? We're not dealing with that. We have a different number of followers, different number of likes, different amounts of revenue, but it can be more cooperative, right? Like truly more democratized, and not as like owned by monopolies.
But I think that you can even then kind of go from up here down doing it this way, and then kind of bring it back just in a different direction.
Well, that's
something that we have. That's what I enjoy the most about Kind of Funny is the competitive nature with myself of I love selling things and like getting things sponsored because to me it's the ultimate challenge of how can I go to a client and in a very real way explain to them that this thing that we're doing where the product is us and the product is us having a conversation with the community and tell them this is worth something. And for them to be like, oh,
it is.
Yeah. And then be like, it's worth a lot. And then be like, you know what? It is worth a lot. Like, there's something there where it's like, it challenges me to really kind of define, are we dope? Like, are we cool? Because if I can't sell us, if I can't say this is special and stand by it, we're fucking up and we need to go back to the drawing board. So I feel like that the competitive thing kind of keeps us honest of, you know what? We are doing what's really cool because it's easy for me to keep going out and tell people, yo, we're doing cool. We have a fucking video wall. That's fucking cool. You know, we have cool friends. They come by and do cool things with us. And people are like, I want to be part of this cool thing. And so it's like, I have such a sense of pride when we get the more unique sponsorships because I'm like, we did this. You know, we were able to sell this and people are looking at us like, oh man, Kind of Funny is cool. They did something that they believe in, and it comes across, and we want to be a part of that. And like, you can get, like, I hope that one day we have something on MTV. Not that I look at MTV as better than YouTube, but in the way that I'm like, I want to convince them that, you know what, we deserve to be there.
We bring back Jackass.
Hell yeah.
It's been gone too long. Right?
Please.
We need it.
I'm addicted.
We did.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we can bring it back.
I mean, men.
Nobody needed that.
Men using their heightened stupidity to hurt themselves is classic international language, right? Like, no matter what, we could go to an African tribe, they don't speak a word and they don't understand, but when they see it, they're cracking up. When they see a guy act stupid and hurt himself, Wild Boys, they're cracking up, right? It's a universal, like, we love it. Like, like, come on, man, you're stupid, hurt yourself.
Somebody get to hitting the balls. Hitting the balls is funny. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Tim.
Yes.
Do we want to do one more topic? Or
I think the first one was real good.
Okay. So you want to break that?
Yeah.
What you're saying?
Okay,
cool.
Yeah.
All right.
This is an hour and 40 of a solid.
No, I know.
Show.
I was just gonna do it. You know,
save that one for next week then.
It doesn't work next week.
Why not?
Because it's about my birthday, which would be the day this breakout posts.
You're doing the.
But actually, kind of because I was gonna talk about aging and what we've learned aging. And we kind of talked about that. In terms of all this because of like what we learned.
And also, if we talk about later, you haven't aged yet. You don't know.
That's a great point.
How old are you gonna be?
34.
Wow.
Huge milestone.
Best years behind me.
Huge
Best years
milestone.
behind me. Well, that's the whole thing. Is that's one of my things. Is like when was the last one? Did birthdays matter? I mean, we did birthday last year. We did a birthday parties topic, but how they kind of faded away, and I was just gonna do a wings thing. But
I've never had one.
Sorry,
never had a birthday party.
Oh, we're throwing you a pizza party for your next birthday.
I'm throwing out the sympathy hook right
Why
now.
Why not?
Drift net, but I don't know. You know, just never really.
It wasn't like a religious thing.
Yeah, I had like, you know, parents would have a cake or something.
Okay,
that was it. Like,
we didn't have like all the buddies come over and do it.
No, I was gonna do it at 50, and then I like wrecked my bike and I wasn't ready to stand up and have a party. 2 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 52. Yeah.
It's always 53.
Yeah, you start feeling it too, man.
It's
those old injuries come back.
Yeah,
You're like, why is my ankle hurting? Oh my God. That was the accident when I was 14. Grandpa wasn't lying.
I know the rain's coming. If you didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Game Over Greggy Show each and every week. 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, each bring a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, and hell, while you're there, go to patreon.com/thecomedy button. You can give us a few bucks, get episodes early, bonus episodes, and a whole bunch of cool perks. If you got no bucks to toss, though, no big deal. Go to youtube.com/kindafunny, where we post the show topic by topic, day by day, until it goes up as one big video and MP3 the following Friday. Lorne Lanning, we love you so much.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's always a pleasure.
When's the next Oddworld game coming out? What can people do right now? It's not coming to Switch. We caught that much.
It'll be in 2018.
Okay.
And I can't. I was threatened. I have a sheet.
Oh, you have a sheet of like what to say? Don't say this.
Don't say that.
That's a
Were you supposed to say you canceled? You canceled 2 games.
Yeah. Failed fast and cheap. Yeah. So we have Soulstorm is coming. We got a few surprises around that. I think we've been showing some early eyeballs on some early things. The indications look really good.
Okay.
We've been working, like I said, the last time I was on the show, I had dark hair, right? So it's been like our heads are to the grinding stones. We're managing like 3 to 4 time zones of people working on it. We haven't been showing anything. We got to be really strategic in how we reveal. Sure. So unfortunately, we're not revealing, but we will. And, you know, hopefully people will be excited, but it'll be 2018.
Okay. We got plenty of games podcasts if you ever want to come back and be one of those.
Lots of Switch games coming.
Exactly. Yeah. You'll see. You'll fucking see, Lanning.
Hey, I want to see him succeed, man. Nintendo must succeed. That's why I'm pissed. Okay.
Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you. Thanks for watching. You can. Oh, no, that's the wrong hand. Thanks for watching. You can click here to subscribe. You can click here to go to Patreon. You can click here to watch something Kevin wants you to watch, and then do something. What's this one? I don't remember.
Behind the chair. You're behind the chair.
It's a face.
People can't see where you're clicking.
Click on my face. To subscribe. I already said subscribe.
Oh, I don't know.
Click on the water
Just there's
bottle.
things here. Click on
If
them.
you want to go to the Easter egg website. Spoilers. It's just going to be a subscribe.
I can't even hear him.